introduce myself, Amir and Brian, and really my back. I don't even have a tech background. I actually have a business background. And in 2016, left that 20, and then right around that time in 2016, I had experienced VR for the first time. Um, Really just became obsessed with the use cases and had to get into the industry in some way, shape, or form. So that's when we started REM5. And then Brian joined us
Just about
about
a
a
year
year ago
ago.
now, Brian.
Yeah, coming up.
Time flies. And Brian's been awesome, planning a lot of our events and doing unique activations with us, and then helping us and leading a lot of our marketing initiatives. And then when COVID hit and we really leaned hard into this WebXR platform, Brian's been an integral part of that as well. So real quick, kind of fun history on VR. VR's kind of been the next big thing for the last 100 years. Uh, the dreams and aspirations of VR really hasn't changed in the last 100 years. The main thing that's changed is the computing power, right? So finally in 2016, the computing power caught up to the dreams and aspirations of what VR could be, and here we are today. And me and kind of Dalton are actually in the metaverse. Did you just take a seat, Dalton?
I did just take a seat. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it.
Sorry if I'm
Um,
low to the ground now.
no, it's all good. And I mean, we always like to go back to the ViewMaster. If you've been to our space in REM5, we have a lot of ViewMasters around because we really believe that that was the first mass market VR device. And if you go back and look at ads from the 50s, I guess the 40s, um, it's almost comical because they talk about how the ViewMaster is going to disrupt education, it's going to disrupt travel, and going to be disruptive to all these industries. And it's almost laughable now, but here we are, basically saying the same thing about VR in its current form, as they were back in the day. But we are clearly drinking the Kool-Aid here at REM5. So why do we get so excited, or why did I get obsessed with VR after the first time I have tried it? And really, it came down to these two buckets. So one, VR can democratize experiences, right? It can bring you to a place, it can bring you to a certain time, it can immerse you in that environment from a both interactive and also storytelling function in a way better than any other medium can. So that's the first lens we look through. And then two is human connection. So look at us here today in this environment, some people in VR, some on desktop. It's a really unique way to connect, an engaging way to connect. And I'll come back to these two concepts throughout my presentation here, as we believe they're kind of the two pillars in which we stand on. So you combine the concept of democratizing experiences with the concept and the fundamentals of experiential learning, and you have what we believe to be the most powerful tool in existence for education and training. So if you look at traditional methodologies for education and training, there's a lack of scalability, there's bias or unconscious bias in the system, there's a lack of consistent data, there's physical safety concerns, there's mental safety concerns, and really just a lack of engagement in a world that is becoming increasingly more challenging to drive engagement with your stakeholders and users. So as you kind of tick through those buckets, VR solves a lot of those problems. There's no bias in the system. It's completely repeatable. It's safe physically and mentally. Really kind of stepping back, the layman's way to look at it is, why does a flight simulator make sense? Or why does the concept of a flight simulator make sense? Now, with the advent of VR, we can apply all those same exact concepts, but apply it to anything in life, whether it's firing somebody at work, or visiting the Anne Frank house, right? All of those same fundamental core concepts apply. So back to drinking all of the Kool-Aid. For those two primary reasons, we think VR is going to change the way you work, play, socialize, create, all of these things. It sounds a little bit crazy, maybe less crazy as we sit here today in 2020 in the middle of a global pandemic. But think about your iPhone, think about your smartphone, and how that went from, that's the device that hasn't really been around for that long, and it has completely disrupted the way that you live your life, work, learn, play, socialize, all of these things. And we think we're on the same path with VR. So maybe I'll stop there. Any quick questions anybody have? And feel free to jump in throughout. It's a small enough group where we can be interactive. Nothing? All right, I'll keep rolling. So REM5, we're based in St. Louis Park. We were founded in 2017. And the way that we looked at the industry is this tool is really, really powerful. We can get really excited and go down a lot of rabbit holes on use cases, but the problem is that most people don't know this stuff exists. It's not accessible. And if they do know it exists, they think about it really through the context of it's for gaming, it's for my kids, or it makes me sick is kind of what we get a lot. And so so the first thing we did is we set up a facility in St. Louis Park. We have 8,000 square feet, really high-end VR. And then our real big trick is, I think it was Joseph that brought it up earlier, is we sell beer and pizza, because people understand beer and pizza. And if we can get the hook in with the beer and pizza, we get the headset on them, and the rest is history. Dick agrees. So that's our physical location. We have about 75 headsets now that we run total, which is one of the largest installations of VR headsets that we know of in the world. So that affords us an opportunity to do a lot of the interesting things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We also have so think about our brick and mortar as kind of our pipeline. Hey, Michael.
Hey there.
Good to see you, bud. And then our consulting business really just stems out of, all right, now we get Dave or Dick in a headset, and they say, oh, wow, okay, this is much more than just for kids and gaming. I should be using this in my business or in my community group or whatever it may be. And so our consulting business spends a lot of time working with companies, trying to understand immersive technology and how to properly deploy it within their business. And then lastly, as a studio, about a year ago, we had a lot of things that we needed, a lot of content that we needed that didn't exist. And so for better or for worse, we had to start creating it on our own. So in terms of the markets that we serve, although we sell beer and pizza and have a lot of fun, that's really just our pipeline and our hook. What we're really trying to do underneath it all is use VR for good. So back to the experiential learning and being able to democratize experiences, we think that it's a complete waste of the tool if it's just being used to shoot zombies or spaceships. Although there's time and place for that, we think there's a much bigger initiative here with immersive tech. And so here's on the bottom a couple of the different areas that we use it for: K through 12 education, art, cultural competence, emotional intelligence. We do a lot of work with seniors, and we also do a lot of work with neurodiverse kids, which is a really fascinating area to work to talk about kids that are on the autism spectrum that maybe have a hard time socializing in real life. You put a VR headset on them, and they are immediately comfortable and are willing to engage with their peers and colleagues. So again, it's just one of those. It's such a simple yet such a powerful use case. The two that I'm going to talk about here in a second and show you examples of are K through 12 education and cultural competence and emotional intelligence. Our K through 12 business is, I think we've worked with about 3,000 kids over the last 2 years, and we do that work in schools, and we do that work on site at REM5, and we look at it through three lenses, really. Back to that providing equitable access to experiences. So think about touring the White House. Think about riding along on the Apollo 11 mission. Think about going into Google Earth and visiting anywhere really on the planet. Think about being able to do industrial design in a VR headset without having a a college degree on how to do design. So a lot of really exciting applications there. Um, it then it then really just prepare and inspire the next generation. I don't mean to be an ageist to anybody in the room, but we're not likely the individuals that are going to be coming up with the best new use cases for VR. So we want to plant that seed with 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, get them thinking about how to utilize this technology, and they're going to be the ones that that really shape the future of this tech. So here's some pictures of some of the recent camps that we've done. And then here's the second area, and this is actually where I spend most of my time, is cultural competence and emotional intelligence. We have worked with about 2,500 people so far in this realm, working from small nonprofits to schools, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And if you think about, especially now with the recent unrest and social justice movements, it's never been, we've never had more momentum behind doing this type of work. And if you think about VR and its ability to tell stories and do them in a safe, controlled manner, hi Shruti, welcome. It's a wildly powerful tool. So to give you an example of that, one experience we use that's been very successful is called Traveling While Black, and it's a 360 video documentary of visiting sites in the Green Book. So you're literally transporting the user to sites in the Green Book, and it ends with sitting across the table from Tamir Rice's mother telling the story of the day her kid was killed by a police officer. So very, very emotional, very powerful story in a way that you can't do on a 2D screen. And you also, not all of us are going to have the opportunity to actually in real life sit across the table from Tamir Rice's mother. So this is a great opportunity again to democratize that experience and provide scale to some of these experiences. So actually right before COVID, we had our biggest project ever is we brought that experience out to Cargill, and we put 800 of their team members through that experience in one day. And ultimately our goal when we're there is not to, we're not saying VR is a solution or the problem solving tool exclusively. Our goal is to drive that conversation further. So when their employees went through that experience, there was a lot of work done afterwards to reflect on that in small groups, personally, in large groups, and to really drive that discussion further internally around what diversity means to Cargill and what are the changes they need to make if they want to meet their goals as it relates to diversity and inclusion. So lastly, the COVID effect, right? So COVID has sucked, right, for everybody, obviously, but big picture, what that's doing to most tech companies is that it's accelerating the adoption of technology, right? Look at Twin Cities Startup Week, right? Everything is going online. So a lot of the stuff that Brian and I have been talking about and our vision for the next 5, 10, 15 years, that's all just getting pulled forward, right? But for us, the biggest challenge is that people don't have VR headsets. If everybody had VR headsets at home, we'd be rocking and rolling on a lot of these use cases, which is why we've started to invest in this WebXR platform, which you're all in today, because it is accessible in headset, like myself right now, and also on desktop or even tablet if you're using the right if you have a space that's optimized for tablet. So really this platform and what we're in today, we view as kind of the bridge for human engagement between video chat and in headset VR. So as we were talking about as a group before we got started here today, It's not a tool that works for everything. If Dalton and I are just going to jump on a call to jam on something and do a screen share or whatever, we can hop on Zoom and that works, right? But if it's a group of 15 people, if it's a group of 20 people, we want to do small breakouts. Maybe we don't know each other, and so we want to do that awkward, let's go stand in circles of 3 like we would in real life and have these conversations. You can simulate that in this environment, which is really powerful. And then in terms of content delivery, which you'll see in a couple of the spaces we're going to go in a second, you can deliver content in a way that's really, really engaging, and you're not limited to just doing a PowerPoint, which is pretty cool. And it comes down to spatial presence. So we're not doing a lot of moving right now, but we will in a second. And you'll hopefully find that the longer you're in these spaces, and even though you're just using your fingers to navigate on the keypad, the longer you're in there, the more sense of presence you have versus a Zoom call, which after 6 months of Zoom calls, it's challenging to stay engaged, to say the least. To say the least. But yeah, I'll stop there. Any questions? I know that was a lot I threw out there, but anybody want to take the discussion in a certain direction, or questions from anybody? Otherwise, we can start jumping into a couple of these other spaces. Somebody's got something. Dick, I know you're thinking.
Amir, this is Heather. I liked when you indicated how it works for neurodiversity. And the other thing, I don't know if you've heard this before, but if someone struggles with vertigo, then VR headsets don't work. So what's gorgeous about this platform is it makes VR accessible for someone who maybe can't handle being constrained in the headset for whatever reason. So it's more of I appreciate that.
Totally, 100%. With one caveat, I'm not going to disagree with you on your vertigo statement, but typically that's just a design issue with the experience. There's also a whole nother school of thought, like Mark Cuban, for instance. He claims that VR cured his vertigo by doing therapy in VR. So yeah, I mean, because we are all too sensitive about movement in VR because we put so many people through VR and so many new users in VR. Typically, it's just your fluid in your ear that senses your balance, and when that's off from what your eyes are seeing, you're going to be disoriented, whether you have vertigo or not. So our rule of thumb is we don't forcibly move people in VR ever unless we have to, right? So like a 10-year-old kid might be able to jump in and play Spider-Man in VR and have the time of his life for an hour. I can't last more than 5 seconds in there. If that makes sense. But your broader point, it's a fantastic point, is accessibility, right? It just takes a computer and a web browser. So again, part of the reason we're here today, and Brian and I are so excited about it.